All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're tearing into session 10 of Strategy Behind Numbers, the Art of Cost Reduction. And honestly, this session is going to totally flip how we look at measuring cost reduction on the manufacturing floor. It's not just about glancing at a balance sheet at the end of the month, it's about finding the real story hiding inside the data. So get ready to completely rethink what you thought you knew about saving money in production. Okay, let's dive into this. We've got to start by busting a massive industry myth. You know how it is? The moment total expenses drop at the end of the month, everyone on the floor celebrates, right? They declare the cost reduction project a massive success. But wait, if costs decreased, is it really a success? Well, our source material emphatically says no. Spending less money doesn't automatically mean your factory actually got more efficient. In fact, relying on just a simple drop in expenses is a pretty dangerous illusion. It can literally lead management completely astray. To show you why, here's the logical journey we're taking today. First, the danger of simple comparison. Second, finding the real cause with unit cost. Third, validating the net effect. Fourth, visualization using BI. And finally, using AI for the future. Let's hit it. Starting right off with Section 1, the danger of simple comparison. So, the core issue here comes down to a simple calculation versus a controlled validation. A simple calculation just looks at the before and after numbers. Sure, it's fast, it's easy, but it is heavily flawed. True performance evaluation absolutely requires controlled validation. Basically, you have to explicitly define three things: your baseline before the improvement, the actual measured results after, and that initial target you were aiming for. Without keeping production conditions, specs, and the time period identical, any number you spit out is practically meaningless. And here's exactly why that simple calculation falls flat on its face. Manufacturing costs are incredibly swayed by external variables that you literally have zero control over on the production floor. Imagine this: you totally streamline a manufacturing process. Great, but at the exact same time the global price of your raw materials skyrockets. Your overall costs are going to go up, which makes your incredibly successful project look like a total failure on paper. Or flip it around. If raw material prices suddenly plummet, your costs might drop even if your factory is running like a disaster. You just can't judge internal efficiency by looking at external market swings. Which brings us to a crucial distinction from our source material: cost reduction versus cost avoidance. Now, cost reduction is when your actual expenses go down under strictly controlled, identical conditions. Cost avoidance, on the other hand, is about preventing a future cost increase from happening in the first place. Both are absolutely vital to keeping a company afloat, but operationally, they're totally different beasts. If you mix these two up, you risk wildly overestimating or underestimating your performance. And you know where that leads? Catastrophic management decisions down the line. So if market noise means we can't trust the final dollar amount, what do we trust? Well, that brings us to Section 2, Real Cause, Unit Cost Analysis. This is the core metric that cuts right through all that external noise: the unit cost driver. It's a purely physical metric. It measures the exact physical amount of resources, think kilograms of raw material or kilowatt hours of electricity, that you actually invest to make a single unit of product. This right here is the ultimate measure of process efficiency because it entirely strips away all those price fluctuations. It doesn't care at all what the exchange rate is today. It only cares how much raw material it took to build one widget. Because of that, the unit cost driver acts as your root cause indicator for manufacturing efficiency. Look, if you reduce the amount of electricity it takes to make one product, boom, you've improved the unit cost. But, and the source text highlights this beautifully, an improved unit cost doesn't always guarantee your overall manufacturing costs will magically drop that same week, especially if material prices happen to spike. That's exactly why we have to analyze the physical unit cost first. You have to prove the engineering actually worked before you start slapping financial data onto it. To properly translate that physical efficiency into actual financial savings, the source outlines a very literal, strict sequence. Step 1, calculate the physical unit cost. Literally, how much stuff did we use per item? Step 2, secure the material unit price for that specific time period. Step 3, multiply those two together for your itemized cost calculation. And finally, Step 4, sum it all up for the total manufacturing cost. By sticking to this exact sequence, you ensure absolute data integrity. It proves your savings came from real, hard-earned efficiency, not just some lucky break in the global supply chain. Now let's move right into Section 3, validating the net effect. Now, what's really interesting about this concept is that even when you know how to calculate true cost, there is a hidden danger waiting to trip you up: side effects. Let's say you implement this brilliant project to reduce the amount of steam used in a process. Awesome, right? But suddenly, the machinery has to work way harder, and your electricity bill goes through the roof. Or maybe you use less raw material, but the final product quality takes a nosedive, and suddenly you're drowning in customer complaints. These unintended consequences are side effects, and if you ignore them, your little cost reduction celebration is going to be very short-lived. To actually survive in modern manufacturing, management decisions can never just look at a single reduced cost line. They have to be based on the net effect. The net effect is the final validated performance. It evaluates the total overall impact by literally subtracting the cost of those negative side effects from your direct benefits. It forces you to look at process stability, safety, quality, basically the entire ecosystem of the production floor, rather than just one single data point. To make sure you're actually hitting a positive net effect, the source material gives us this rigorous checklist. Before taking any savings to management, you have to ask yourself, was this compared on an identical baseline? Were external variables like material prices actually adjusted for? Did you compare the actuals against your initial targets? Have all the potential side effects been thoroughly reviewed? And finally, has the overall net effect been independently verified? Keep in mind, real cost management is about rigorous verification. It's not just doing some quick math. All right, shifting gears to Section 4, visualization using BI. So the huge question becomes, how on earth do we communicate all these incredibly complex numbers without totally putting management to sleep? Well, as your factory's data gets more complex, mixing timelines, external pricing, side effects, traditional spreadsheets just completely fail. They literally turn into a giant unreadable wall of numbers. Business intelligence or BI tools solve this. They integrate all that massive, messy data into one centralized system and flip it into intuitive visualizations. You shift from just reporting dry numbers to delivering instant insights, which radically speeds up executive decision-making. And this brilliantly illustrates the power of BI, the waterfall chart. Instead of just vaguely showing that costs went down by 10 grand, a waterfall chart breaks down exactly why. It visually separates the true unit cost efficiency that you earned from the external price fluctuations and those pesky negative side effects. Management can look at it and instantly go, okay, the engineers saved us money here, but the market price of steel ate into those savings over there. It takes the invisible forces of manufacturing and makes them totally visible. To make sure management gets the story instantly, you need specific chart strategies. You want to use a bar chart when you need to plainly compare your actual results against your initial targets. You'd use the waterfall chart, like we just saw, for deep cause analysis, separating internal efficiency from external pricing. And then you utilize a trend chart when you want to track how those changes are actually holding up over a long period of time. Honestly, using the right visual tool is just as crucial as having the right data in the first place. Which brings us to our final part, Section 5, using AI for the future. Okay, so we've verified the past and we've visualized the present. Now it is time to move from being reactive to being proactive. Because let's be real, even with amazing BI tools, humans have limits. Gathering data, hunting down anomalies, manually running what-if scenarios, it takes a massive amount of time. The source text highlights that implementing AI shatters those manual limits. AI can automatically flag weird usage patterns on the factory floor long before they become expensive nightmares. It can run thousands of comparative scenarios in literal seconds to suggest the absolute best path forward. It upgrades the analyst's job from just crunching numbers to making high-level strategic judgments. And here it is, the ultimate evolution of the modern manufacturing workflow. You start by collecting the raw data. That feeds right into your unit cost analysis. Then it's pushed into an intuitive BI visualization. That visual empowers a confident, rock-solid management decision. And finally, the outcome of that decision loops right into an AI system that spits out intelligent predictions for the very next production cycle. It becomes this continuous, self-improving loop of efficiency. Which brings us to an incredibly powerful quote straight from the source material. Data explains the past, and AI prepares for the future. This right here is the massive mindset shift required for modern cost accounting. We can't afford to just be historians logging what happened yesterday anymore. We've got to be strategists, using these incredible tools to anticipate and optimize exactly what is going to happen tomorrow. So as we wrap up this explainer of Session 10, I want to leave you with a provocative question to chew on the next time you're staring at a massive factory spreadsheet. Ask yourself, is your data merely explaining the past, or are you actively using it to prepare for the future? Look, by mastering the true unit cost, validating the net effect, and actually leveraging BI and AI, you can completely transform your entire manufacturing strategy. Thanks for hanging out with me for this deep dive, and keep learning.